Hello everyone, your friendly neighborhood spider fanboy here to bring you a revamped already What If series. What if Naruto had fox summoning? So let's go on ahead and jump right into the video. So I decided to kind of redo this one already because I didn't really like how I did it before. So let's just go on ahead and jump right into it. I'm making the beginning a little different. When Naruto was around perhaps 10 years old after he's first failed the academy exam, which I still don't understand how he managed to fail, what, two or three times before he managed to graduate? Should imply that the rest of his classmates did, but whatever. Right after that, he skulks off to a random training ground. He manages to bypass any security, if there even is any. He just kind of wanders into the forest, and he happens upon a training ground where he sees a random sensei show off some jutsu to his new getting squad. He shows off his summoning jutsu and states that this will be part of his assessment exam. It's going to be part of his passing exam, and that if they pass this, they will truly become his own. They'll become his own Genin team, which get them all to question him. And he explains that, well, you may have graduated from the academy. A Genin has to pass their sensei's exams, or they will either be sent back to the academy or sent into the Genin Corps, which catches Naruto's attention. Great, so not only does he have to actually manage to pass graduation and somehow manage to get a hold of the stupid clone jutsu, but he's also going to have to pass whatever arbitrary test his sensei's going to come up with. Man, that sucks. But but he was focused more on the cool summoning jutsu, which he managed to memorize the hand seals to. And in private, a few days later, he wants to try it out for himself. Maybe if he can summon some help, they can help him master his cloning jutsu, and he can finally pass the academy. And that's within his own mind. This gets Kurama's attention. He's gonna be trying out the summoning jutsu. Interesting. He's gonna be trying out the summoning jutsu without any kind of actual contract. He wonders. Normally, whenever someone does that, they'll just be sent randomly to a summon. They'll be randomly placed in front of a summoning realm, and typically, it's to a realm they'll have some kind of innate affinity towards. Maybe a group that they'll just be able to get along with personality-wise. Maybe they'll show some kind of potential towards being able to make use of their senjutsu. But occasionally, it'll be because of some kind of outside interference. He wonders if Naruto will be able to interact with those summoning creatures. Naruto ends up casting the summoning jutsu, and at the very last moment, Kurama decides to test this theory by allowing some of his chakra to escape into Naruto's casting, which of course Naruto doesn't exactly notice, other than that he feels his chakra expand a little bit when he does. He puts a little too much into it than he actually intended to, which was already way too much for the standard summoning jutsu. And he is teleported to a random location, which of course gets Konoha's attention immediately. Any censors who were keeping an eye on Naruto notice that he has completely disappeared from Konoha, and word is immediately sent to the third Hokage. Naruto appears in a random forested area. He wanders around a little bit, calling out if anyone can hear him, only for him to hear the rustling of leaves. He quickly turns around, pulls out a kunai from his pouch, although it is blunted and dulled as it's only for training, and he sees what looks like a small fox with a mask on its face. It yips at him, comes up close, sniffs him, which Naruto does allow, even if he is a little tense, but eventually he bends down and begins to pet the fox, which doesn't seem to mind. Another yip catches his ear. He turns towards the bushes once more and sees two more. And then another two, and then finally another three. A whole 9 foxes begin circling around him, sniffing him, rubbing up against him, and within his mind is Kurama. So they're still alive. How interesting. He wonders how much they've grown. It's been quite some time since he's seen them. Maybe Maybe this kid will be useful for something outside of just being someone that he has to live out. Normally he wouldn't have cared, but maybe, just maybe. In the outside world, Naruto is beginning to play with the foxes for a little bit, but eventually one of them catches his and the other's attention as it stands upright and manages to let out a much larger bark almost as it catches all of their attention and begins to walk away. The other 8 foxes do the same, and the last one turns towards Naruto and seemingly beckons him, which gets Naruto's attention as he gets up off the floor and begins to follow them. They eventually come across a shrine with 9 pedestals. They each have various names. With hold on, I want to make sure. I want to pull this up real quick because I do have it written down. I have all of their names written down. Yeah. So Naruto witnesses the formation of the 9 empty shrines, and like pedestals basically. He sees the 9 pedestals, and they each have they have like a plaque for where written there is 9 different names. Seiryu, the blue dragon; Byakko, the white tiger; Suzaku, the vermilion bird, just picture a phoenix; Genbu, the black tortoise; Kinja, golden snake; Tenyo, celestial maiden; Shinigami, death god; Hakuto Sennin and Nanto Sennin, the northern and southern sages. Naruto ends up reading them all aloud, and he keeps his focus on each one, not noticing that after he says the name, one of the foxes jumps up onto the pedestal. He only notices when he gets to the last 2, the Hakuto and Nanto Sennin, as the last 2 foxes jump onto the last 2 shrines. He looks around and notices that all around him the pedestals have shifted, so that they're all surrounding him. They all point towards with one paw. They lift towards the center where Naruto manages to get the message. And despite being very creeped out by the vibes, he does follow suit. He walks into the middle where a new pedestal rises with a singular scroll. It's completely blank. He unravels it and sees that no one's ever written their name, which he decides to do. If only he had some pen, or if he had ink and a brush. But one of the foxes jumps off of the pedestal, lands directly before him, and nips at his finger, which gets Naruto kind of pissed. What the hell was that for? Only for it to gesture at his bloodied finger before pointing down at the paper. It has to do this a couple of times to get Naruto's attention, but he gets it. You want me to write my name with my blood? And nods at him. Despite being hesitant, he does so, writing down his name, thinking that maybe it was similar to why he had to bite his finger for the jutsu to work before. So he does so, writing his name in blood, and they ask, and he looks at it. Well, now what? And then gestures to just place its hand down. It again has to do this a couple of times, just making it look like it's inking its own paw, and stamping it down. It takes it a few more tries because Naruto's very confused, but eventually he gets the picture. Okay, just press my hand down. And then the fox hops back onto its own pedestal. He sees it was for Seiryu. And suddenly, Naruto's chakra begins to activate. Only it's not just his own chakra that's flowing into the scroll. It's Kurama's as well. He may as well entertain his children, if they can truly be called that. He supposes it's the closest thing. It's been quite some time since he's seen them, a good few centuries. Maybe this is some kind of fate. Guesses he'll have to try and hold back on killing this jailer if the 9 have decided to ally themselves with him of their own free will. Perhaps it's just because they sense Kurama, but he can feel that there's something more. He knows his 9. And as Naruto witnesses a flooding of blue chakra and red chakra escaping his body and into the scroll, he notices that what almost seems like green chakra begins to flow around the 9, only for it to quickly then turn an orange-red as their forms begin to shift. For Seiryu, They all begin to embody their names. Seryu becomes a blue dragon that is a good few meters in length. Byaku becomes a white tiger bigger than any big cat Naruto has ever seen. Not that he's ever really seen much. Suzaku turns into a vermilion bird with flames dancing across its feathers for a brief moment. Genbu turns into a large black tortoise with Kinja becoming a long golden snake with glittering golden scales. Tenyo, a celestial maiden, almost appears humanoid with its white garbs and flowing ribbons. Shinigami, wearing its black robes and holding a very long and dangerous looking scythe behind it. Hakuto Sennin and Nanto Sennin, each of them dressed in white robes themselves with ringed staffs that they hold. Yeah, they're dressed in very obvious monkish robes, with wooden staffs with a fox head on each of them and wearing prayer beads. I'll be I'll be including what they look like in the thumbnail, so you'll be able to guess. You'll be able to see which ones are which. Um, especially since Hakuto and Nanto Sennin are completely identical. But they all stare down at him, and for a moment he wonders just what the hell is going on before he is suddenly enveloped in a puff of smoke as he reappears in the same forest as to where he just was. Naruto is wondering just what the hell is going on. Like, what exactly just happened? He performed the summoning jutsu, met some foxes, and now he's back here. Naruto then notices that he's wearing something new when he poofs back into the real world. On each of his fingers, there are 9 new rings. He wears one ring with the kanji Azor, with the background being blue. He wears one ring with the kanji for Byaku, which means white, with a white background. Suzaku or Shu, one is bearing the kanji for Shu, which means vermilion, with a red orange background. One where it says Gen, which is black, so with a black background and written in white. One has Ku for sky, with a golden background. Or actually for Gen, it would be like a brownish black color, so that you can actually see it being written in black. The sixth is Gyoku for jewel, which has a pearlish white background, distinctly different from the pale blank white background. Another says San for 3, which bears a kind of it's a ring with a grayish background, and the final 2 just say Haku and Nan for north and south, which have very beigeish colors that are identical to one another, except for the kanji. And sitting in his lap is the same kind of mask that the various 9 foxes were wearing. Basically Menma's mask from the Road to Ninja series, from the Road to Ninja Naruto movie. Again, you'll be able to see it in the thumbnail as Menma from the movie is standing in the center. Actually, I think I'm going to find a slightly better thumbnail now that I think about it. But yeah, you'll be able to see what they all look like and what Naruto's new mask will look like. Naruto looks at all the rings on his fingers and once again is wondering just what exactly is going on. But before he can say anything, the third Hokage and a couple of Anbu manage to appear before him, and they ask him what exactly happened. And Naruto is left a little dumbstruck, especially when everyone is staring at the 9 rings he's wearing and looking directly at the fox mask sitting in his lap. They eventually bring him into Hokage Tower, directly to Hiruzen's office, where they manage to sit down and talk things out. Naruto explains that he was looking for a place to train, and he saw a sensei talking to his students, and he performed this super cool jutsu where he was able to summon some animals to help him out. And Naruto thought if he could do that, he could get some help with the academy because he's been having some trouble. Hiruzen sighs briefly as he once again contemplates Naruto's loneliness and how much it's clearly been affecting him that he was so willing to try out a technique that he knew nothing about the true mechanics of. But he ends up asking, where did the summoning jutsu take Naruto? And this gets Naruto confused. How did you know it take me somewhere? He says, well, not only have you been missing for the past hour, but when someone who does not have a contract makes use of the summoning jutsu, it will either fail or they will be sent to a summoning realm, full of summoners of which they will have some kind of affinity with. So, Naruto, I ask once again, where were you sent? And Naruto explains he was sent to a forest with this shrine. There were 9 foxes there. And this gets everyone's in the room's attention. Hiruzen, Kakashi, who was in his own Anbu mask and outfit. Or no, at this point he'd probably be Jonin Sensei because he failed a good few teams, and that implies that it happened over the course of a couple of years. So, yeah, Kakashi isn't here, or maybe he is as just some Jonin accompanying the third Hokage. Maybe he was the one who found Naruto. Who knows? But yeah, this gets everyone's attention. They're like, are you sure it was 9 foxes? And he's like, yeah, but they all had these weird masks, which gets Hiruzen's attention once more. He asks if they look like the masks that Naruto's been holding, and he says, yeah, it did actually. I don't know what this is though. I think they gave it to me before they sent me back here. And the rings. I don't really know what they do. Hiruzen is contemplative. He doesn't want to interfere with a summoning contract. That can be quite dangerous, as they might get this summoning clan of foxes on their bad side. And if they allied with Naruto for the reason he thinks they did, well, he's never really heard of a fox summoning clan, but he can imagine what may have spawned it. Normally, summoning clans may begin on their own. Very old animals that have managed to become in tune with nature chakra, which grants them intelligence, strength, and wisdom, which allows them to establish their own clans, which they eventually, dependent on their own wills and whims, may lead them to allying with shinobi. Or they may be started by shinobi, who have allied themselves from a young age with an animal with some level of potential in learning the ways of chakra and natural energy. And together they would form a clan of their own by gathering other creatures to serve under them. But occasionally there is the case of something different happening. The slugs, for instance, were not started completely on their own. The slugs were started by the interference of the Six Tails? Seiken, the slug Biju. Six Tails. Hold on. Yeah, Seiken the Six Tails, or the Rokubi. How the slug clan the slug summoning clan that Tsunade makes use of was started thanks to the interference and meddling of the six-tailed beast, which is now in possession of Kirigakure. So it does happen where a tailed beast can lead to the formation of a summoning clan, mainly due to the fact that they have some level of connection to natural energy, especially considering that their chakra disperses into the environment and they randomly reform in the wild whenever someone manages to actually kill them. Although in more recent years it's mainly been to someone managing to kill their Jinchuriki rather than the tailed beast itself, even if it has happened before. So the third Hokage does have a theory as to why they've allied with Naruto, and it may potentially spell disaster, but it may just be what they're looking for. A summoning clan could really go very far in bringing Naruto out of his very lonely existence. And beyond that, it may be good to ally themselves with this clan, as it may help them in some way, shape, or form gain control of the Nine Tails within Naruto. This may be, or at the very least, it may be a path to power that doesn't lead to ruin. This may allow Naruto to have a form of power outside of having to rely on the Nine Tails. So for now, he decides that he'll be assisting Naruto in learning about these new friends of his, which gets Naruto super excited. Ah, that's awesome. I can't wait to train with you, old man. One day I'll become strong enough to take that hat from you. You just wait. And Hiruzen just chuckles to himself. I am waiting indeed, Naruto. That much I promise you. Over the course of the next couple of months, whenever Naruto is done with his training for whenever he's done with the academy, he is occasionally called to a private training ground with the Hokage whenever he's not busy. The first time around, he re-performs the summoning jutsu and manages to summon them back in their base fox forms. And he learns that through these rings that he can somewhat share a connection with them. He says that it feels like he can feel whatever they feel sometimes. Like they send something to him, but he's not sure what it is. And Hiruzen theorizes and they do test things out, and essentially Naruto learns that he can actually summon them without having to go through with the summoning jutsu. He doesn't have to do the hand seals. He can just summon them through the rings. And that he can also communicate with them. He can send thoughts with them and they can share their own thoughts, although it's more their feelings and their whatever it is they're looking at any particular point. Although for the ability to look or hear whatever it is they're seeing or hearing, he has to make use of the mask. He has to put it on, which does at times concern Hiruzen, as he knows what Uzumaki masks are capable of, specifically one in particular, although this mask does seem to be safe. So Naruto learns that he can make use of the mask to sense and hear and smell whatever it is that they're looking at. And he very quickly learns that he can make use of them as trackers. They can help track down opponents. They can help him with reconnaissance, which Hiruzen really drives into his head, and Naruto takes as they can really help him plan out his pranks, which he does make use of. Although Hiruzen quickly shuts that down, saying that he doesn't want him making use of any of these creatures against the populace of Konoha. It'll really give him a bad reputation, especially with the bad reputation of the Nine Tails from all those years ago. No one really likes foxes after what happened, so it might not be best to make use of them in front of the public, which Naruto does decide to concede to. But Naruto does eventually ask. He does bring up with Hiruzen that he knows that they can transform. They can look different, especially when he begins calling them by what he can tell is their names, which gets Hiruzen confused. How are you able to tell them apart? And he says, well, he thinks it's based on the rings. He can kind of feel which ring is linked to which of them. And looking at the rings, he can guess pretty well which one of their names are. And that gets Hiruzen confused once more. Their names? And he's like, yeah. Oh, I completely forgot to mention. They can transform. And then he turns towards the nine and asks them if they can transform, like they did before. But they all shake their head, which gets Naruto confused until they eventually manage to go through another game of charades, and especially through the kind of empathy sharing through the rings, that Naruto doesn't have enough chakra to supply them with the strength to transform just yet, which gets Naruto kind of bummed. He wanted to show off what his new friends could really do. And Hiruzen himself is somewhat curious. He wonders what exactly these transformed states of theirs could actually do, and what kind of techniques they could make use of. Some of them seem obvious: the vermilion bird, the Seryu, the Suzaku Genbu Byako, and Kinja, he can guess that perhaps they have some kind of elemental affinities based off of their colors and the legends surrounding such creatures. As for the Tenyo in Shinigami, he is somewhat concerned, especially with the Shinigami. He's learned of the Shinigami before, and he's very concerned as to what this Shinigami can apparently do. And as for the Hakuto and Nanto Sennin, he is somewhat concerned by the fact that they have Sennin in their name, and he hopes that that they're not going to try to introduce to Naruto into Sage mode too early, as he is definitely not ready for that kind of ability. But considering that they seem to not be able to make use of such abilities just yet, he decides to let go of any concerns for now. He also helps Naruto by pointing him in the direction of refining his chakra control so that he could make better use of the chakra he uses to keep them summoned, um, as well as just to make sure that Naruto is going to be able to become a shinobi with some level of skill outside of his summons. He needs to make sure Naruto himself is competent, and he teaches him tree walking and water walking, and even decides to ask it, and even encourages him to try to master the leaf sticking exercise, as while it is the most basic chakra exercise for most academy students, for Naruto, due to his massive amounts of chakra, it is in fact the most difficult for him. And he does manage to eventually get Naruto to be able to perform it by telling him that perhaps what he perhaps his issue is that he's trying to overpower it. He asks him what exactly happens whenever he tries the leaf sticking exercise, and he says that whenever he tries to rein it in, he uses too little and it doesn't stick at all. And whenever he tries to pump it up, he ends up just causing it to shred to pieces, which does somewhat catch Hiruzen's attention. Shreds. Interesting. But he does see the problem. He's pouring way too much chakra. And after he gets him to master tree walking and eventually water walking, and we'll say that at this point, between his occasional visits at this point, Naruto is in his second to last year. Um, he tells Naruto that he needs to try to not just spread it out, but try to focus it in multiple places at once, rather than trying to put all of his focus into one. And this kind of gets Naruto confused until he says, "Think of it like this. I've heard you I noticed at your apartment you've taken to watering some plants. I'm sure you learned very quickly that you can't overwater your plants." And he's like, "Well, yeah, because then you drown them." And he's like, "It's exactly like that. Try to, rather than trying to use a massive amount of water for just one plant, what if you were to try to use your chakra? Use the same amount of chakra you always do for the leaf sticking exercise, but spread it amongst multiple leaves, and keep practicing until eventually you find the right amount for just one leaf, and then focus on trying to stick just to one leaf. And then after that, you can go backwards again. If you manage to get it to where you can reliably stick just one leaf to your body, get it to where you can stick multiple leaves to your body all at once, and try to keep it up throughout the day underneath your clothes. That way you can be constantly training your chakra exercise all throughout your time at the academy. By the time you'll graduate, you may just be a master of chakra control. Who knows, you may even surpass that student of mine, Tsunade. And if you do manage this, I'll teach you a technique that truly exemplifies one's control over chakra. How does that sound?" And when he turns back to Naruto after his little lecture, he notices these stars in Naruto's eyes, which he's like, okay, yep, he's definitely hooked. He says that if he can get it to where he can, if he manages to get it to where he can stick one singular leaf to his body, he wants him to then try the clone technique, and to apply the same method. Rather than trying to pour all of your chakra into one clone, spread it out amongst try to create multiple illusionary clones at once, and then try to work out how much you need for just one clone, and then narrow it down. Refine it before once again trying to expand how many clones you can make at one time. They may not be able to act as physical copies, but being able to swarm your opponent with a number of illusionary clones may just be able to throw them off their game. You may be able to intimidate someone out of trying to attack you, or they could serve as diversions, which Naruto gets to practicing with his foxes. He also teaches them, or at least he tries to teach them, the various techniques. But he notices that they can do almost everything he can do naturally. They can walk on water. They can walk along trees. They can even allow leaves to stick to their own fur without any problem whatsoever. But what they aren't initially able to do is when he shows off the only illusionary technique he's able to pull off, his transformation jutsu. And while he does, of course, initially use it in the sexy jutsu variant, he actually shows off that he can transform into a whole bunch of different people. And he has pretty good impersonations. He does the third Hokage, he does Iruka, he does some of his classmates, he does the old man from Ichiraku, he does his daughter Ayame, he does various shopkeepers from all around Konoha that he's frequently pranked for turning him away and treating him like garbage. And after practicing it enough times in front of him, what surprises him is that one day the 9 actually show off by transforming into 9 of his different classmates. With one of them actually transforming into a perfect copy of Naruto himself. Although their behavior is a little stilted. Their facial expressions are awkward. They're awkward at moving around. And Naruto thinks that this is perfect. Now he has something he can actually train with his summons, while he actually trains himself up. And he begins practicing up his chakra control. He gets down the illusionary clone technique, and we're not having him graduate early. And he also gets down he also manages to teach his summons how to properly transform and act like humans, although their speech is limited as they're not very good at speaking. Their body language and their acting is pretty good, but they don't really speak whenever they transform, outside of like laughs and grunts or anything like that. They can't really speak English. But Naruto does end up showing this off to Hiruzen, who was actually impressed that Naruto went above and beyond like this. And at this point, Naruto is just a couple of months away from the graduation point at the beginning of the series. We're nearing episode or chapter 1. And Naruto at this point has become quite famous at the academy as he has improved quite a lot. He is still at least ranked among those expected to actually pass, technically dead last amongst what everyone believes is going to be the graduating class, which is the Rookie 9 as we know them. Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, Hinata, Shino, I'm blinking out on his name, Kiba, and then Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji. But he's technically the bottom, mainly due to his poor academic ranking, and at this point in terms of taijutsu, mainly because he's been actually sparring against the 9 whenever they're transformed, as well as receiving the occasional correction and pointer and tip from Hiruzen in terms of his taijutsu, not being directly tutored by him, as he only gets a couple days out of the month to be actually able to train with him, but he has been improving. So he's about equal with Kiba in terms of taijutsu, who himself is most likely the second best in the class, at least when it comes to the male ninja, the male shinobi. When it comes to, if you were to take the entirety of the class into account, I would say it would probably be Sasuke, Hinata, Kiba, and Naruto being tied, maybe Choji right after, and then it's kind of a toss up into the air for the rest of the class. Or for the rest of the Rookie 9, because who cares about any of the other fodder and background characters that don't even get names. But yeah, Naruto has definitely improved, and he even shows off, after he shows off to the third Hokage, he decides to show off some techniques of his own. First, he shows off the Shunshin, or the body flicker technique, which he says is it's linked to the substitution technique that he learned. And basically, it is linked to chakra control because it involves releasing a burst of chakra from one's feet, similar to what happens when you overcharge chakra during the tree walking exercise. And similarly to how that causes you to fly away from the tree, this technique will cause you to move in any direction at super high speeds. And it requires precise chakra control because one has to be able to basically not crash land. They'd have to make sure that they don't send themselves flying into a tree or something. And Naruto begins practicing the Shunshin. He begins practicing the hand seal so that he can get it down faster and faster. And but this is only the first technique that he's given. The second technique is the Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu. Not the official Shadow Clone Jutsu, but the Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu, which allows Naruto to multiply the amount of Shuriken or even Kunai whenever he throws them at his opponents. And he says that if he manages to get these down by the time he graduates, which he's sure Naruto will, now that he has a solid grasp on the Basic Academy 3, he'll teach him one final, very special technique. That's actually the base technique for the Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu, the true Shadow Clone Jutsu, which Hiruzen himself shows off. He shows off that it's a physical clone that can be used in combat, but he also explains that similarly to how Naruto can make use of his foxes and the mask to be able to connect with their senses and surveillance and basically use them for surveillance, Naruto would be able to use these shadow clones for surveillance because whenever they dispel, they can pass on their memories to the caster, which gets Naruto's attention. That sounds super cool. And not only that, but he could actually swarm his opponents with clones rather than just trying to bluff them. So he is super determined to try to get both the Shunshin Jutsu, or the body flicker technique, and the Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu. Which he does get down the Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu, but the Shunshin he is not as good at least not in his own opinion. He wants to be able to use it in battle. Unknowingly, he wants to get to some Shisui levels of just being able to essentially flash step around the battlefield and leave behind his own after images. But he is able to reliably make use of the Shunshin to be able to move at high speeds. He does still have to do the hand seals, and he does leave some leaves in his trail. But yeah, he is not yet a master of the technique. But we do get to the events of episode 1, where he actually manages to pass this time without issue. Mizuki would be no problem at all, as he... Actually, no. Let's actually make use of Mizuki rather than just completely no-selling him. Here, he actually approaches Naruto, who, after initially riding his high of being able to graduate with his team, or with his classmates, he is still a little upset that he was technically ranked at dead last, as while he has the third best physical scores, occasionally tying with Choji in terms of some physical aspects. His academic ranking dragged him down on the average, making him the lowest overall in the class. So even amongst the graduates, he is still known as the dead last, which does somewhat get to him, and that is only bogged down a little bit more when he notices that everyone is leaving home with their parents. Iruka, and he is bogged down a little bit more when Iruka says that as much as he would love to celebrate with Naruto, he is a little busy with paperwork, but he'll meet him in just a couple of hours for some late night Ichiraku ramen. That much he promises, which does cheer Naruto up a little bit. But he is eventually approached by Mizuki not a little bit later, and he says that there is a secondary exam he could take, and Naruto initially thinks that maybe this is the exam with the sensei, and maybe he can do it quickly so that he's actually guaranteed to be a shinobi, because that is a worry on his mind. He remembers when the Genin sensei, or the Jonin sensei, the Jonin sensei said that one would have to pass their Jonin sensei's own exam in order to truly become a shinobi. And with this worry on his mind, Mizuki is able to manipulate him into stealing the scroll of sealing, saying that it'll promote him to top shinobi of the year, top shinobi of his class. And when Naruto questions if it'll also guarantee that he won't be sent back by his Jonin sensei, Mizuki's initially surprised that he knows that, but he's like, "Yeah, don't even worry about it. Are you kidding? If they know that you'll be able to pull off this exam, they might just skip the formality entirely. At that point, you'll be guaranteed to be a genin." And Naruto is, of course, manipulated. He does sneak past and gets his hands on the scroll of sealing, and here he manages to learn not the shadow clone technique. This time he looks into anything in relation to summoning or seals, because he is a little interested in seals. After learning that, to an extent, summoning jutsu does have some kind of link to sealing ninjutsu. And as he's looking through, he notices some notes on the flying thunder god technique, which he notices, and he summons out the 9 foxes to kind of look over with. And he ends up pulling out a small scroll of his own, and he manages to copy down all of the notes that he sees. He writes it down. He focuses on writing with the mask on, while one of his foxes is looking. And he also has the rest set up in a bit of a perimeter watch to avoid any Anbu or Jonin. Although eventually he notices Iruka approaching, and he decides not to shift his position as he allows Iruka to show up. Naruto ends up finishing up a seal on one kunai, on one singular kunai of his, and applies a bit of chakra into it, and grins at it, as Iruka makes his way onto the scene, asking Naruto what exactly does he think he's doing. And Naruto turns towards Iruka while still wearing his mask, with one of his foxes standing next to him. He eventually calls the rest of the 9 and actually introduces them to Iruka, who is somewhat hesitant when he sees that there's 9 foxes. Again, this is setting off alarm bells in his head, as he wasn't aware of this. And he asks Naruto what exactly he did. And he says, "Oh no, don't worry. These guys aren't from the skull. These guys are from something else. The third Hokage knows about these guys. They're cool." And this gets Iruka to somewhat calm down. Okay, the third knows about the foxes, but still, what the hell is Naruto doing? And he's like, "I pass now, right? I'm guaranteed to get in no matter what a Jonin Sensei says, just like Mizuki Sensei told me." And this gets Iruka's attention, as immediately the 9 shift their focus off of Iruka to what seems like approaching danger. They all quickly shift their stances and begin growling, and one of them actually jumps into the air and seemingly bats away some kunai that were shooting towards Naruto. Naruto notices this, and while he did freeze for a small second, he actually focuses back onto the battle when he can feel the rush and flurry of emotions from the 9 foxes. Worry, concern, and some level of anger, as he needs to focus on what's going on. And while he does bring out a kunai, he is holding it somewhat shakingly, which causes the 9 to send levels of reassurance towards him, trying to get him to calm down and focus, which do help. He ends up asking Mizuki Sensei, who comes out from beneath the shadows, what exactly he's doing. And Mizuki says, "Well, of course, now I need to really take you out, because you're apparently making use of that demon fox's power. Who knew you were keeping this secret? I guess you really are that wretched beast." Which gets Iruka to speak up. "Don't talk about it. We're not supposed to talk about it. It's forbidden." Naruto questions what exactly is going on, and Mizuki lets it out. He is the 9-tailed fox, or which Iruka quickly corrects to, "No, it's sealed inside of him. He is not the fox." Naruto is somewhat shaken up by this, and when he looks down at the 9, things actually begin to kind of click in his head. The 9 notice this, and some of them shift their gaze to Naruto, trying to send levels of reassurance, but also levels of urgency that this is not the time. But Naruto somewhat misinterprets this, and that they've been lying to him. That they're trying to use him, in his own head, in his own panic, he comes up with the idea that they're trying to reawaken their master, or something like that. And he ends up running away, with the 9 following after him. Iruka manages to hold off Mizuki from attacking Naruto or any of the 9, and they begin a little bout of their own, and before they end up separating, so that they can both go looking for Naruto. Naruto himself is crouched down, hugging the scroll and crying, with the mask left on the floor. The nine pop up before him and they try to get close to him, but he initially pushes them away. He's afraid of them. He's afraid of what's inside of him. And within his own mind, Kurama is just disappointed, but also resigned. What did he expect from this human? Of course, he would let his fears take control of him. Of course, he would be just as prejudiced as the rest. It looks like his kin were mistaken. His children. They failed in finding a proper human. One who would have been able to live up to the old man's expectations. He has to admit, maybe he was getting his hopes a little high after these past couple of months. But he doesn't really know what he expected. That is until the emotions begin flowing in. Sadness, regret from the nine, which only begin to infuriate Kurama. He's about to snap and let loose his chakra, try to take control of his vessel and comfort his children. But Naruto breaks out of his own little haze as he begins to listen to the altercation between Iruka and Mizuki. That Iruka believes in Naruto, and Naruto believes in those animals, in those foxes, in the nine, and that, as far as he's concerned, they're allies of the leaf. And this gets Naruto's attention as he looks towards the nine, who are now looking at him with some level of sadness, resignation, and with a dwindling amount of hope. And he realizes that they've been waiting. They must have been alone for so long, and he was about to just leave them, the same way he thought that Iruka would have left them after learning that he was the Nine-Tails, or that at least that he held it within him. But Iruka is still willing to stand beside him, even after he lost his parents to the Nine-Tails, which he does know about to an extent. And he was about to do the same thing to these nine. He was about to leave them alone for something that they had no control over. They had nothing to do with the Nine-Tails being sealed within them. At least he's pretty sure they aren't. And even if they did, what does it matter? They're his friends. That's all that matters. So wiping away his tears, he puts on his mask, holds out his hand, and asks if they'd be willing to help him. They look at him, feeling their hope beginning to rise, and they nod. And within his mind, Kurama is somewhat frozen. He turns around and simply curls up, deciding to let things play out for a little while longer. Maybe this kid isn't as bad as he thought. Although that moment of weakness does prove somewhat worrying to him, he supposes he'll just have to see how this will go. So he ends up retreating back and deciding to rest and watch for now. Naruto appears in front of Mizuki and Iruka, saying that he's gonna kill Mizuki for harming his sensei. Behind him, the nine appear, and Naruto begins to do battle against Mizuki, by opening up with the Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu, which creates a literal storm of metal flying towards Mizuki's location, which he manages to dodge out of the way, only for Naruto to appear behind him with a Shunshin Jutsu and kick him directly back onto the field. The nine appear with their own Shunshin, a technique that they manage to once again pick up from Naruto. They all transform into copies of Naruto, each of them wearing the same mask that Naruto is wearing right now, the fox mask. And they begin to beat on Mizuki, and they eventually leave him a bloody pulp on the floor, with a few kunai and shurikens sticking out of his back jacket. Naruto approaches Iruka after sending the nine back and he doesn't dispel them just yet. Naruto with the nine, who are somewhat all panting to an extent, they all begin to approach Iruka, with Naruto peeling off the mask and sitting in front of his sensei asking if he's alright. Iruka says that he's fine. He'll be able to heal from this pretty well. The large shuriken didn't penetrate all that deep. They do have the same talk, Naruto, where Iruka takes off his headband and gifts it to Naruto, declaring him a shinobi of the Hidden Leaf Village, and stating that these 9 foxes of his are now officially recognized as allies of the Hidden Leaf as well. which actually gets them all to begin yipping and yelping in contentment and happiness, feeding off of the happiness and of their summoner and reveling in this moment of levity between them. They all begin frolicking around the area before eventually dispelling due to the amount of chakra Naruto was expending. Naruto ends up carrying Ruka back into the village and explains his recent situation and how Mizuki tricked and manipulated him. He also sits down with the Hokage after everything is said and done and explains that Mizuki told him he has the Nine Tails, and he asks if the old man thinks it might have anything to do with why he summoned the foxes of all creatures. And the old man says that yes, he does believe that Naruto's holding and housing of the Nine Tails is why he was sent to their realm. But it's very clear Naruto's own personality, his own will, his own strength, his own dedication is what makes him a great summoner. He might have met the initial qualifications because of the Nine Tails, but everything after that, his progress, his current growth of skill and control, it's all because of him. And with that, he has a small reward. He hands over a scroll with the instructions for the Shadow Clone Jutsu. And he tells him that he'll be instructing him on the usage of this technique, as well as the technique that he knows Naruto used. He didn't Shunshin or body flicker behind Mizuki. He saw what happened through his crystal ball. He appeared in a flash of orange, in a flash, almost a spark of orange. He knows what that technique looks like. So he asks Naruto to hold out his kunai. He holds out a kunai with red wrappings, and painted on the hilt of the red wrappings are the markings for the Thunder God technique, for the Flying Thunder God technique. So you managed to learn that technique, huh? Naruto, I believe there are two more secrets that I must tell you about, and I only hope that you can forgive me. Hiruzen walks up to the wall, takes off the portrait of the fourth Hokage, and hands it to Naruto. Naruto looks down at it, confused, before looking back up to the third Hokage, asking what's going on, only for him to just tell him to focus. Focus as intently as possible on the image of the fourth Hokage. And Naruto does, noticing at the same time his own reflection off of the glass of the frame. And it begins to click in his head. Blonde spiky hair, blue eyes. There are some differences. His hair is blonder, not as pale as Minato's. His eyes are a little bluer, subtle. His face is rounder, most likely because he's younger, and obviously the whisker marks, but he notices. Over these past few years, he's been so focused on training and spending so much time with the Nine. While he did focus on bathing himself, to an extent, he hadn't been focusing too much on his own personal care, and his hair had grown a little longer. Particularly in the front, the bangs framing his face, that are identical to the fourth Hokage's. He looks up to Hiruzen, who is now holding a different picture. The same blonde man, only without his Hokage cloak, without any joning flak jacket, without his headband. Just a man, holding in his arms a woman with red hair tied up in a ponytail, with a pregnant belly. They're looking at each other with love. And in a secondary photo, seemingly only taken a few seconds later, they're both looking towards her belly. Her pregnant belly. And her face, it's round, like his. He shakingly holds out his hand, grasps the picture and holds it close to his chest as tears begin to stream down his face. And he asks, Are they? He looks up to the Hokage with a look of confusion, hurt, pain, anger, indignation. Why? Why didn't you? And then he's hugged. Hiruzen hugs him and begins to shake himself, because he was a weak and foolish old man who thought he was doing the right thing, but was in fact failing in every aspect. but he refuses to fail Naruto again. Yes, Naruto, these are his parents, Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. And he thinks it's about time he learned the truth of his legacy, of the legacy he holds. And from that, we will be ending things. Hiruzen, after learning that Naruto actually managed to replicate the Hiraishin as quickly as he did, has decided to tell Naruto about his heritage a lot earlier. Naruto now has access to summonings that he can actually summon without having to go through the hand seals. He is able to make use of his rings, which in the movie actually look very similar to what. Hold on. Hold on. I think they're supposed to look similar to the Akatsuki rings, because Naruto and his 9 masked beasts in their actual transform states are supposed to, in the movie at least, mirror the Akatsuki. Ooh, that hurt. But yeah. I'll showcase what the mask is supposed to look like, and specifically what the 9 are supposed to look like. But yeah. Naruto has access to the 9 fox summonings from the Road to Ninja movie, and he isn't able to make use of them in their transform states just yet, but he will be able to soon. They will eventually be able to make use of their full power, the full range of their abilities, and he will show off just how powerful he is with these guys soon enough. He also has a much more expanded repertoire. He has the basic Academy 3 down. He has much better chakra control. He has the Shunshin no Jutsu, or the body flicker technique that made Shisui so famous. Sorry, crushing a water bottle. He also now has the Hiraishin technique, although he has a few limitations that are going to be restricting his ability to just spam it the way his father could. And he's also going to be gaining access to the Shadow Clone Jutsu very soon. But yeah, for now, that is the end of part 1. We'll get into part 2 soon enough. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you did and didn't like, what you think I could do better, and what you think I should just straight up do different. Let me know if you have any different ideas for new what ifs. Leave them down in the comments below. Leave your constructive criticism, please. I would appreciate it very much. I want to improve as much as I can, but if you're just going to be a dick about it, don't bother. Don't waste anyone's time. And finally, that's about it, actually. So I will see all of you in the next video. Bye-bye.